Holy newsflash, Batman. Donald Trump is not running against Kamala Harris in this campaign, but it seems like he wishes he was. Joe Biden has stated that if Donald Trump loses this election, he is not confident in the peaceful transition of power. Abortion will be on the ballot in Arizona. Kamala Harris is surging in the polls. Kari Lake is trailing Ruben Gallego. And former governor Doug Ducey, despite nasty attacks from MAGA World, has buried the hatchet and has just endorsed Kari Lake and Donald Trump. My name is Billy Harfouch, broadcasting from Dave Pratt Star Worldwide Network Studios in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. Joining me on the program today is Elias Weiss, formerly with the New Times and the Daily Beast, and the editor of In Maricopa, one of the smartest men in the business. Welcome back to the program.
Happy to be here, Billy.
Let's just dive right into it. Trump wants to run against Joe Biden. Newsflash, he's not running against Joe Biden. How does he shift gears here and focus on Kamala Harris?
Here's a problem already. He's not shifting gears so far. We saw so much in the X Spaces with Elon Musk this week. When you look at the numbers, people thought that Joe Biden was too old to run. On the day before he dropped out, it was 78% to Donald Trump, 53%. That was back in July. Now Trump is at 58%, and Kamala Harris is only at 11%. You can get 11% of people to agree the moon landing was fake. That's a meaningless number. Now the age issue falls on Trump. He's doing nothing to pivot here. He needs to focus on the areas where he's winning. He is still winning in the economy. He is still winning in the border. He needs to focus on those things and stop airing past grievances. The person who wins this election will be the person who is campaigning on hope and change. It's what Clinton did. It's what Obama did. Kamala Harris hasn't done a media interview in a month. She is getting a major benefit of the doubt factor here that she is coming in a position of hope and change. In reality, she has not deviated from the Biden agenda, at least not publicly. We are completely nebulous on where she stands policy-wise. Donald Trump needs to get out of the media echo chamber. All the 26 questions that Time Magazine asked him about his pending litigation, about January 6th, he needs to let that go and talk about hope and talk about change and shut down this narrative that's been manufactured by the media and the public that Kamala Harris is the candidate of hope and change. Before she comes out and says it herself, that's where he needs to pivot.
Glad you brought the fire today. So here's the thing. I was watching the presidential debate, the Biden-Trump debate, and I was sitting there on the couch, and the moment he started stuttering, the moment he was stumbling, I turned and I said, it's over. It is over. And I told you that privately. I told you that publicly on the show. I said, Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. He's going to slip and fall, or more than likely, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, the powers that be, as we call him on this show, are going to make sure that he's not the nominee because this man, love him or hate him, cannot win. It's shocking that the Trump campaign was not and is not more prepared for this. It's absolutely shocking. He's still talking about Joe Biden. He needs to get that man's name out of his mouth. That ship has sailed. It's shocking that the Trump campaign cannot stay focused on this woman, focus on her record, stop with the racial stuff, stop with all that junk, the gender, race. None of that is landing. Focus on the issues and why from the moment in that original debate when he stumbled, and it was literally like 2 minutes in, they didn't just throw out the playbook and develop a new one. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, what they're doing right now, it's not working, but I'm hesitant to criticize what they did. I've heard so much criticism, especially pundits on the left talking about how the Trump campaign is making the Kamala Harris issue a sex issue. They're making it a race issue. The truth is, the left made it a race issue first when Joe Biden in 2020 was picking a running mate and he said it would be a woman of color. It was not a merit-based decision. It was a DEI decision. So when you hear that, that is rooted in fact. That is rooted in what happened from the left. They tried to capitalize that, the Trump campaign. And when you look at polling, look at young voters, Gen Z Democrat voters, the number one reason they give that they're supporting Kamala Harris is that she's a woman of color. This is tangible. That's coming from real polling numbers. And so to attack that and to say, let's go based on policy. Let's not go based on skin pigmentation and sex organs. Let's get beyond that. I didn't think, you have to offer a little bit of credence to that strategy there. Obviously, it's not working. It's time to pivot. Right now, there's only two options policy-wise that we know about Kamala Harris. She hasn't come out and had any policy of her own. In fact, The only new policy that she's come out and supported is no tips on tax, which is directly stolen from Donald Trump.
Right.
So if you're Trump, you have two options. Right now, she's either the Biden clone, she's going to continue his will, there's no change there, there's absolutely no hope, or she's going to go back to what she said on the debate stage in 2020 when she ran as a Democratic nominee for president, got 0 delegates, had no support, her party rejected her. Why? Because her day one goals was decriminalize illegal immigration, ban fracking, everything that was unpopular across the spectrum. These are broadly unpopular ideas. If she's not going to be Joe Biden, we have to revert back to what she's already said. But that's not what's happening here, because the media has invented this hope and change persona for Kamala. She has not come out and offered any new policy. She hasn't put forth anything new. And what does she get for it? What kind of accountability does she get? The cover of Time magazine with a glowing article about how she's the second coming. Meanwhile, Donald Trump actually participated in the interview. She refused to interview, and she is rewarded with glowing press coverage about how she is the hope and change. That's completely manufactured. Donald Trump's camp needs to come out and point that out.
Right, because that's not on her. Like, everyone out there seems to be blaming her. I don't blame her. I don't blame her campaign for not doing interviews, for not doing press conferences. I wish she would, because I think it would be good for our country. It would be good for the citizens out there and the voters. But why would you? 6 of 7 swing states, she is surging in the polls. She's polled to within a coin flip there. Trump had those states. A gentleman in this business that's highly respected, Frank Luntz, a pollster. This is from CNBC. He said, quote, "She's bringing out people who are not interested in voting for either Trump or Biden. So the entire electoral pool has changed." He goes on to say, "She's got an intensity advantage, and I haven't seen anything like this happen in 30 days in my lifetime." So all I'm saying is, everyone out there faulting Kamala Harris, she's doing exactly what she should be doing.
With one exception, she wants to distance herself from Joe Biden. Joe Biden was going to lose to Donald Trump. She needs to show people that she's not Joe Biden. Well, what was one of the main critiques of Biden was, where is he? He's MIA. We can't find him. Why? Because he's old. He's not confident to go out and speak. Well, what's Kamala's excuse? A month without a media interview. I mean, you're getting the cover of Time magazine, and you can't even make a phone call. She needs to be distancing herself from Biden, so that is her fault. Now, the manufactured ego of how she is the hope and change candidate, that is not on her. That is completely on the media. But you need to look at where she's picking up the support here. Much to your point, Donald Trump has not lost support. Donald Trump has the same support that he had in May. Kamala Harris is gaining support amongst those undecided voters. Look at RFK. He was polling at 10%. Now he's polling at 5%. That's something Trump should be worried about. Those 5% of RFK voters that are hanging on are more likely, if you look at the profile of that RFK voter, they are more likely to support Donald Trump. There was double haters, that's what the media called it, people that were never Trumpers and they were never going to vote for Joe Biden. She is gaining support among those people. She is picking up support from the people that said they would never vote for Biden. She doesn't have the same. There's never Trumpers and there's always Trumpers, right? There isn't always Harrisers. That's not a thing. She hasn't had the time
you're right.
to develop that yet. There's always Democrats, but that is not the same issue.
You are right. So there's a couple different categories here. The first category is a MAGA Trump supporter. That person, that human, no matter what, is voting for Donald Trump. The second category is a Democrat that's highly enthused. Those people are going to come out, they're going to donate, they're going to volunteer, and they're going to vote for whoever's in blue. The third category, Trump derangement syndrome people, those people, no matter what, this microphone could be running against Donald Trump, they're going to vote for the microphone. The next category is people that did not like Donald Trump, that did not like Joe Biden, and you know what they were going to do? They were going to sit their asses on the couch and watch Netflix. Those are the people that Harris has enthused. Those are the people that Harris is now motivating. Those are the people, in my estimation, that now say, oh my God, I don't have to vote for an old man, Joe Biden, who can't even get up the stairs to Air Force One. I don't have to be voting for Donald Trump, who I just disagree with, his mentality and his personality, and he's a nasty man. Now I have this other lane that I can walk down, and she's filled that lane. It's Kamala Harris.
Yeah, look at the Cook report. Back in May, Donald Trump was +3 with independent voters. Here in Arizona, we're the state of independent voters. It's our biggest voting bloc. This hits close to home. Donald Trump was up as many as double digits in Arizona. Now he trails within the margin of error, but he's trailing 3 points in Arizona. You look back at the Cook report in May, Donald Trump was +3 on independents. Now Kamala Harris is +8. That is an 11-point swing.
And where are those +8 coming
the
from?
5% that are ditching RFK. This is a tangible number. This race will be decided
Who's
in the
the
margins.
+8? Who's the +8?
The +8 are the people that were not sold on Biden. They could not commit to Biden, but they didn't want to vote for Donald Trump. If you're Donald Trump, you should be capitalizing on this right now. There are people that were willing to not vote Democrat 4 weeks ago. Those people are still willing to not vote Democrat if you can show them who Kamala is. The problem is they are up against this honeymoon stage, this wave of media support. This honeymoon stage is going to carry through the convention next week, and she's not going to be going around the ringer of opposition research until after. The question is that going to be too late?
I want to shift to some comments that the current president made recently in an interview. He said that if Donald Trump loses, he is not confident in a smooth and peaceful transition of power. We all saw what happened on January 6th. We all saw the aftermath of that. However, he didn't stay in the White House and try to get the military behind him or something. He did leave the White House and Joe Biden took office. For a sitting president to say that he's not confident in a smooth transition and a peaceful transition of power is concerning. Do you think this is simply a campaign kind of talking line, democracy is at stake? Or do you think that people should be concerned that if Trump loses, we're going to see January 6th and this whole craziness over again in our country?
Well, here's the problem, and you're the host here, but I want to ask you a question because this is a question that's been on my mind. I don't have an answer yet, and it relates directly to this. To what degree is the onus on Democrats to try to put a damper on the stolen election theories? And I say that because you have to understand where these things come from. They get blown out of proportion. They get exaggerated. Conspiracy theories are always rooted in a fact that gets taken too far, right? And this is what happened when it came to the reporting in 2020, the ballot dumps, right, that we saw overnight. Now, we've come in audits and independent investigations from Republicans at the federal level that these things were all above board. But this is bad optics for the public. And the Democrats position themselves as the party of fairness and transparency and unity and the enemy of divisiveness and the enemy of division. And so if that's you and you're a Democrat, and this is exactly why I criticized the Secret Service response when they said, well, if it wasn't Trump on the stage, it still would have happened. Well, if a Republican would have appointed Secret Service, it still would have happened. Okay, but they didn't. That's not what happened. What comfort are you offering people? Is the onus on Democrats to do damage control? And in this case, there's examples going back forever, all the way back to Brett Kavanaugh, when you say, okay, yeah, it would have come out anyway. Okay, but it came out when he was in the position to go on the Supreme Court. Again, it's all these things to say, well, it would have happened anyway. Okay, but it didn't. Statute of limitations expired on Trump in New York. And then we brought the case when he was running for president again. We would have brought it now anyway. Okay, but you didn't. So at what point are Democrats culpable for steering the right-leaning public into believing this kind of stuff? And I really think that they are. So in this case, you have the democratic process, a process by which we all abide, even people like Carrie Lake, who are the staunchest. I would say nobody is more staunch on the stolen election in 2020, stolen election in 2022 than Carrie Lake. She is still participating in the democratic process. She's campaigning in the primary, winning the primary, moving on to the general, campaigning in the general. She is participating in the process. What Democrats did in this cycle, in this presidential cycle, is they did not adhere to the process. 11 million or 14 million people voted for Joe Biden in the primary to represent them. If he knew that he wasn't going to be up for the task, if his camp knew, if there was this pressure mounting, why didn't he go out before the primary so the Republicans can't look across the aisle and say, you went around the rules. Your party is voting for somebody who did not come about by the democratic process. And I understand she was on the top of the same ticket, but that is something that they can point to. So if we're worried about this, yeah, where's the damage control here? If you don't like divisiveness, why are you going out of your way to steer the public in terms of right-leaning voters into believing this stuff, giving them fuel to the fire, giving them evidence, And that's exactly what Democrats are doing. So I pose that question to
The
you. Is the
Democrats-
onus on them?
The Democrats play dirty. The Democrats play dirty. They get in the mud. And we recently had Marianne Williamson on the show, and she's running for president, as a Democrat. And she basically told us exactly what you just said. How can you have a sitting president step down, not 25th Amendment, just step down from his campaign and just insert and crown a new queen without the people speaking?
And speaking of playing dirty, to do it at the time when there's the first presidential assassination attempt in many of our lifetimes, including mine, and to completely shut down any momentum. Again, what they're doing isn't illegal. That's what's frustrating when you are on the right, because what they're doing is legal. It's allowed. It's frustrating that the public can't see past some of this stuff.
Legal. None of it really matters. This is a show. This is a game. It's all just smoke and mirrors. And you know what? A lot of people inside our country, they believe that we have all of these rules and we have all of these laws and these barriers and parameters, and it's all built around this amazing superpower, this American empire. What I've learned over the last 9 years interviewing the most influential people in the world is that we kind of have rules. We kind of sort of have laws. But if you got a lot of money and if you're powerful and you have the right messaging and you have a big group behind you, you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. And we've seen that on both sides. In my estimation, the Democrats are just a little better at it. They're a little bit more organized. They're a little bit more detailed. And they're loyal. They stick together. We saw this with Joe Biden. What happened? He could have blown up this whole freaking party and not stepped down. But when the powers that be came knocking, he said, okay, I'll sign this letter. I'll sign it right here. So they just play dirtier. They're just a little bit better at it. And a lot of us out there are naive. We think that we have, this country that all of these sort of rules and government structure and everything is so concise. Nope, it's not. You can do whatever the hell you want under the right constraints if you have money and you have power, and that's what they have.
And that unity in the Democratic Party is to a fault, because if you look at the factioning of the Republican Party, there's factioning going on both sides simultaneously in real time. The factioning in the Republican Party, as we all know, is the establishment versus the MAGA. And look no further than Arizona to see how Arizona voters who lean right in aggregate rejected MAGA. They rejected Kari Lake, they rejected Hamadeh, they rejected Masters, because Arizona Republicans weren't ready for MAGA. They didn't just say, all right, you're a Republican, game over. And me, as an independent, lean right, I've been registered as a Republican before. I didn't vote for those Republicans in 2022 because they were enemies of what I stand for, and they were enemies of my best interests, especially as a journalist. They were anti-press, and I could not get behind that. On the Democratic side, however, it's the complete opposite, and the unity is to a fault, because you have Kamala Harris, who in 2019, the bipartisan think tank in D.C., GovTrack, named her the most liberal senator ever. She was supporting absolutely radical far-left, no party support. There was no support inside or outside of her party, ran a bid for president that is one of the biggest categorical failures in terms of a Democratic presidential bid. And now that people say, well, it's all about matchups. It's all about matchups. Yeah, the fact that Kamala Harris isn't Donald Trump, what was so bad that made her unelectable, that made her a 0% support candidate in 2020, where today she's going to become president of the United States? Because she's a Democrat. Because the Democrats don't reject the factioning in the same way that Republicans do, because they believe that Donald Trump is the enemy of the state. And the worst part is that they disbelieve their own eyewitness accounts of his 4 years as president.
And she's new. She's bright. She's shiny. Orange man bad. I don't have to vote for Orange man. I don't have to vote for senile, nursing home man. I have this woman who is out there, and she's not doing press conferences, she's not doing interviews, but she's doing rallies. She was just here last week in Glendale, 20,000 people going absolutely insane. I thought it was an Obama rally. She's new, she's bright, she's shiny, she's fresh, she's good on the teleprompter. She doesn't need to do interviews. She doesn't need to do anything, because, to your point, the Democrats are together. If I'm the Trump campaign, you know what I do? I make one ad, and it's all about San Francisco. San Francisco, you show the homeless, you show people defecating and pissing on the street, you show the crime, you show the looting. You run that on a reel and you say, Do you want America to become San Francisco? And you just run that on a loop. All of this stuff, the signaling, the racial stuff, none of it is landing. The Trump campaign needs to get organized, or a perfect storm has happened for Kamala Harris. She's going to win this election. I want to get to something you mentioned. You mentioned Donald Trump and Kari Lake and how you couldn't really get behind the MAGA movement for various reasons. Our former governor, Doug Ducey, has now came out and fully endorsed Kari Lake, and I'm kind of laughing, and fully endorsed Donald Trump. This is how it works behind the scenes. Doug Ducey was not a big fan of either of them. We all remember when the phone was ringing, right, when he was signing the election in Arizona, and it was Donald Trump calling. We all remember him calling Kari Lake names back and forth, back and forth. What happened to Ducey that now all of a sudden he's coming out and supporting these two people?
I think he's afraid of Democrats and what they'll do. I am afraid of Kamala Harris. I am not a MAGA. I am, if anything, an establishment Republican or a lean right independent. That's really who I am. I can't support Kari Lake, and frankly, I don't see what's so terrifying about Ruben Gallego, especially when everything Kari Lake says about him is a lie. She says he tried to turn Arizona into a socialist state. That's a lie. In fact, if you look at the Georgetown University School of Public Policy, every year they do a rating on partisanship in Congress, and in their most recent one, 2023, Ruben Gallego got a 0.3, and that number doesn't mean anything to the people watching. I'll put it this way. AOC was a 2.2, meaning that she was ranked more than 7 times more far left than Ruben Gallego. So I can't get behind Kari Lake, but I understand it with Donald Trump. Kamala Harris scares me as a person. And again, I'm not one to disparage other people for their votes. I think that in a system where there's landslides, there's either a very bad candidate or there needs to be a restructure of the entire party system. And so I think that our elections are decided on razor-thin margins because people generally vote in their best interest. Well, guess what? Kamala Harris doesn't stand for my best interests in more than 90% of scenarios. And I am in a plurality of voters. And Kamala Harris is exactly the reason why she picked a straight white guy to run with. I think she picked the wrong one, but it's the same reason why Joe Biden said he would only pick a woman of color. They only know how to play on this identity politics line, and it's just frustrating that the voters don't seem to be able to pick up on that.
Really quickly, it seems to me, if you're just a simple person looking at this election, let's focus on the state of Arizona really quickly, because we have 2 more topics to get to. It seems to me that a Donald Trump voter, right, he's within 2 or 3 points in Arizona, is a Kari Lake voter, right? If you're voting for Donald Trump, you're probably not going to vote for Ruben Gallego. You're probably going to vote for Kari Lake. And what we're seeing, though, is Kari Lake is trailing 6 points. You said before the interview, maybe up to 11 points. So why is the margin of error so much greater with Kari's race as opposed to Trump's race in Arizona?
Kari is like Kmart Donald Trump. It's just she Donald Trump is a designer brand. She tries to be a duplicate of him.
Kari's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks.
She's great, and I hope she watches this.
She's not going to be happy you just called her Kmart Donald Trump.
She knows me. Kari Mart Donald Trump. That's exactly what she is.
We're going to have to replay
Donald
this
Trump
clip.
is a winner. Donald Trump has won 3 consecutive primaries. Donald Trump has won an election. Donald Trump has won as a business person. Donald Trump has won as a celebrity. Kari Lake can't win a coin toss.
Oh, man. We might have to bring him in for the Kari Lake interview, Rob.
Kari knows me. Have me here because Kari Lake can't win in court. She's 0 for a lifetime.
Are you being fair? Are you being fair to her? I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to watch this that are strong Kari Lake supporters, and they think that you're just doing the same thing that the Democrats do, and you're just, name calling, and you're not focused on issues.
I am voting for Donald Trump. What issues?
You're not voting for Kari Lake?
I'm not voting for Kari Lake.
You're voting for Ruben Gallego?
Yes.
Okay. Now that we got that on wax, that's good. I got to move right along here. I want to ask you about abortion rights. Abortion rights will be a ballot measure. We heard from Secretary of State Fontes. To me, this is a major issue, and I know that Trump wants to downplay it and say, the abortion stuff, it's gone to the states, let the states decide. I get that. I get how it works legally. But if abortion is a ballot measure in Arizona, I know for a fact that a lot of women are going to come out that are not involved in the process, that don't really give a damn about politics, but guess what? They're going to go vote because they want to vote on this abortion measure. And we know that those people trend blue. How does the abortion initiative affect the race in Arizona? And could this actually swing things in favor of Kamala Harris?
Yeah, this is huge. You only need something like 370,000 signatures in a petition to get a ballot measure on the general election ballot. In Arizona, they got something like 570,000 signatures. Historic, it's the most signatures for a ballot measure petition in the history of the state of Arizona. And so this is huge, and this will sway things. People that are going to vote on the abortion issue might stick around and vote for other things. And a lot of these disinterested voters, I wanted to bring up this number earlier. We had record voter turnout in 2020, the highest in American history. That was predicted to go down dramatically. People were interested in the drama of the election, but they weren't interested in voting because there were so many people who were never Trumpers and never Bideners. And so they wanted to watch, the debate ratings would be higher, but the voter turnout was predicted to be lower. It was 55% in May. Today, it's over 65%. Now it's projected to outdo 2020 in terms of turnout. And this is one of those catalysts for turnout. Women that are coming out to vote on the abortion issue, and they're going to want to stick around. And if they're making that low information voter knee-jerk choice, and they see that name Donald Trump, they are going to be motivated to vote against him. And so I am hearing a lot of stuff about how we're witnessing the next steal in real time. Absolutely not. Donald Trump had a 25-point advantage with non-college whites. Now he's at 14%. He had a +3 on independent voters. Now he's -8. He had, a 5% of RFK voters have mostly moved to Kamala. And so these are real numbers. I'm not saying we're seeing another steal in real time. And this abortion issue is another catalyst. On the other side of the token, though, I just can't stand the abortion issue as the top issue. The reality is we just need a reality check here. The great majority of Americans will never be affected by the border. We are all affected by inflation. Many of us are affected by the border, and those are the issues that Donald Trump wins on. He needs to be playing up the economy. He needs to be playing up inflation. He needs to be playing up the border crisis, because the reality is most people aren't affected on abortion. When it comes down to making a decision, most people, including liberal women, should be more motivated to vote based on the economy than they are on abortion. And look at how Donald Trump had 7% black support in 2020, and now he's at 24%. And look at how Kamala Harris has the lowest support among Latino voters for any Democrat this millennium. And you can think, well, yeah, these are religious groups of people. You're talking about a huge demographic of Catholic people in Latinos. You're talking about a huge demographic of Christians and black voters that are religious in greater numbers than white people, who are voting now. They've been forced to vote on an issue of abortion.
Well, you can say that, but let me give you a reality check as well. A lot of women out there, per my previous point, that were not motivated, that were not so politically inclined, they will be voting, because guess what? What are they called? They're called one-issue voters. All they care about is abortion. And the Democrats are so organized, they're going to get all those pro-choicers out there to vote, and then they're going to fill in the rest of their ballot for Ruben Gallego and for Kamala Harris and right down the line. So while to you it might not be a major issue, and to the country, yes, the border, inflation, international wars and stuff like that are very important, but to this group of people, and we're seeing small margins in these swing states, that could be what tips things over. And wouldn't it be incredible that, Donald Trump, I was just reflecting on this morning with these Supreme Court appointments, and everybody was cheering him. And then Donald Trump, the Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade, and everybody was cheering that, right? All the Republicans. And that could be the thing that loses him this election. The stuff that they wanted him to do, he followed through with, appointing these Supreme Court judges. They overturned Roe v. Wade, and then in turn, down the road, that could be what loses him this election.
It could hurt the issue for right-wing people in Arizona, because when the territorial ban was overturned by a bipartisan, thanks to like 3 Republicans, vote in the Arizona state legislature to repeal that where it was illegal in all instances, we defaulted back to what we had before, which is a 15-week ban. The issue on the ballot in November is a 24-week ban. So if you're on the right, if you're pro-life, you're ending up in a worse spot. But here's the thing. Donald Trump has already come out and said he supports the 15-week ban. Kamala Harris,
he can say it all he wants. Women that are upset about this issue don't even hear him. They don't even listen to him. They're going to come out. they're going to vote pro-choice, and they're going to vote for Kamala
and what's
Harris.
what's going to happen after 4 years of a Harris presidency, which is the same as there's so much Biden regret. Kamala Harris is getting a mind-boggling amount of benefit of the doubt for a sitting vice president associated with an administration with sub 30% approval.
I'm just
and
telling
now she's
you,
coming out. And when all these women who are not going to be affected by abortion ever come back in 4 years and say, oh, that's right, my life sucks. I can't afford to live, can't afford to feed my family.
You're missing the
Why
point.
did I vote on one issue?
I'm just telling you what's going to get people motivated.
You're right.
To get to the
But that's
polls.
what scares me, because the thing that's motivating them at the polls are issues that won't affect them by and large, whereas the issues that will affect them, Donald Trump is leading on those issues, and they can't get past that. Well, I don't like him as a person.
Well, we can argue all day on this, but I got to tell you right now, this election, I mean, I'm getting fired up over here. This election, I believe, is going to be we've seen wild things. We saw a sitting president step down. We saw an attempt on Trump's life. It seems like every day, just the Twitter feed just keeps getting refreshed. And I don't think we're done. We're in August. They talk about an October surprise. We're not even in October yet. Stay tuned. Get your popcorn ready, because this is going to be absolutely insane. And I hope and I pray for the safety of our country that we can get through this election. I hope that Joe Biden is wrong, that if Trump does lose, that there will be a peaceful transition of power, because at the end of the day, we're all Americans, and I hope that patriotism, a little bit of patriotism on both sides will prevail.
I do too. I did not support anything at January 6th. While I don't believe it was an insurrection on Trump's part, I think the people who were charged, those individuals, got what they deserved. I've never supported January 6th. I am appalled by it. I would never want to see it happen again. It's a tarnish on the Republican Party. And let's face the facts. Donald Trump, it's time to ride into the sunset. He's done. He should be done. I wish we could see somebody else. Voters need to put somebody else in his place. My fear if he loses is honestly that he will run again, and we won't be able to get out of this cycle. Let Kamala Harris show people what 4 years of the most liberal senator in history in charge of the White House. Let people see what 4 years of that looks like, and let's put forward a different Republican so that we can survive 4 more years and have something to look forward to on the other side.
I can't gloss over. I was going to end the show just then, but real quick, someone do the math. Is Donald Trump's how old?
78.
He's 78. So what would he be in 2028?
82.
Be 82, and what is Biden? 81?
81.
Okay, so Trump is a little bit more with it, obviously, than Biden, but you're telling me, this is a hot take, you're telling me that if Donald Trump loses this election in November, he will run again?
Yeah, because his thing with Joe Biden wasn't Joe Biden's too old in terms of the leaves on the calendar.
He never said that.
He never said that.
He said
that. Joe Biden has aged faster than me.
Yeah, and he
Joe
just said
Biden,
like the policies and stuff.
He lost the genetic lottery.
Yes.
He got the dementia. Me,
yes.
I didn't get it. I'm still great. If you want to see a Republican that just can't quit, just look at Joe Arpaio.
Yeah, okay.
And Donald Trump and Joe Arpaio, according to Arpaio, are like this.
Well, they kiss.
They even have the same favorite song, My Way.
It is interesting that Donald Trump does not like, even during the post-debate discussion, doesn't like the age piece. He doesn't like to talk about Biden's age. He never liked that. He focused on policies. He focused a little bit on maybe like jokes and cognitive issues, but he never really hit him hard for his age, because maybe he is thinking, if I lose this election, I'm going to be older than he was, and I'm going to run again. Wow. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Same reason why I can't make fun of a guy for being short.
Oh, there you go. I like it. Elias, so you're the editor of In Maricopa. Tell us about what's going on out there in Maricopa, and what do you got going on in your world?
Man, there's so much going on. We've got an issue on the stands right now. Cover stories about homelessness. This is a referendum on homelessness in Metro Phoenix. Part of the reason why these magazines are going all over the valley. And I'm happy to say last month in July, we had the most visitors on our website ever. We had 600,000 people from around the state visiting our website, and 55% of those people were coming from Phoenix. We've got a huge regional presence. I'm really happy to say we're the most widely distributed print journalism in Pinal County, and we are covering stories that really affect the state. We've got a newsroom full of Cronkite journalists that are just grinding away 24/7 on some really cool stories. And look no further than our website, inmaricopa.com, and the magazine, which is available in the city, but it's also available online for free. We will never charge for the magazine. If you want it mailed to your house, find me on Instagram. I'll give you a free subscription mailer if you're in Phoenix. And otherwise, the website's free, unlimited articles. Read the e-edition. I'm very happy to say that we don't charge, because that is journalism is something that we think should be available to all people for free.
You're doing
and
God's
always
work.
Will be. So.
God's work out there in Maricopa.com. Check that out. And big announcement next week on the program. Viral sensation, freedom of speech lover, fighter of the machine, prime time number 99, Alex Stein will be on the show. Get your popcorn ready. Like, subscribe,